Today's episode is brought to you by the Vegas Beer Guys and the Brew Bar. The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language, and I will not go to my room. Hello and welcome to the Everything Sequel podcast, the Karate Kid edition. My name is Michael Shantz. I am from the How Dare You Awards. Joining me in today's adventure is, of course, Tom Stewart from Lonesome Whistle Productions. Give it to me, Tom.
Bad bull make good soup. That's one of Miyagi's great zingers from this.
In the pantheon of great zingers from this movie.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say this god awful movie, but I should probably say this Buddha awful movie.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Tom and I are discussing The Next Karate Kid, a 1994 adventure directed by Christopher Kane. Do you know Christopher Kane, Tom?
I looked him up, but I've already forgotten what other things he did, but I remember they were surprisingly good.
Well...
Or am I wrong there, too?
Yeah, not if you're including Gone Fishing.
Is that Danny Glover and Joe Pesci?
And Joe Pesci. We have The Principal with James Belushi, and he did direct the first Young Guns movie.
That's, I think, what I was looking at, yeah.
Yeah. And that's not a bad movie.
No, and...
But it makes you wonder what the fuck happened with this movie.
The mid-90s happened.
Maybe. I think you're right, yeah.
I mean, this is one of our carbon-dated movies. This is a movie that's like sealed into the early to mid-90s, like, you know, like Zod and Non and Ursa in that mirror.
Yeah. You went with the sequel reference. Well done.
You know what, Mike? I can't not think in terms of sequels anymore.
Yeah, right.
It's my entire frame of reference for everything in my life.
Let me ask you this. How is this affecting your family? Like, do you have to subject your wife to any of these sequels, or are you always watching them alone?
I'm typically watching them alone. This one, actually, okay. My wife watched a little bit with me and...
Quit. And then quit.
Well, I think, you know, she came in the middle of a fight sequence, and, you know, she was surprised as probably, you know, any viewer in 1993, four, yeah, was to see Hilary Swank rather than Ralph Macchio appear out of the pile of bodies. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so, all right, let's get into it. This movie had a budget of $12 million, only made $8.9 in the USA, managed to scrape $15.8 million worldwide cumulatively. But of course, as always, there is an end to every series, Tom, and this is the movie that killed the series. Rightly so, I would say.
Cinematically, yeah. Which is interesting for a couple of reasons. The first being that I think we talked about before, this has a reboot quality to it, even though it's a continuation. Yes. It's right. Very much about resetting the narrative. Resetting the narrative.
Yeah.
So, you know,
but not well.
but you know what it effectively did was create a point of no return, which is sort of exactly the opposite of what it was trying to do. But also just, you know, and again, we've talked a little bit about this, and I don't think either of us have seen it, but, you know, Cobra Kai has picked up the mantle of continuing the story of, the story of Daniel, the story of Kreese.
Johnny.
Which is something that this film is singularly failed to do. So I think, without this movie, there would be less demand for something like Cobra Kai.
Maybe. It's funny. It's like it speaks to what you and I just before we got started we were talking about, just musing about sequels and
No surprise there.
yeah, the nature of sequels and what they should do and what you value in them. And there's nothing easy about making a sequel, right? I mean, even in our description of our own podcast, we talk about we're discussing the most difficult of movies to get right, the sequel.
Yeah.
And boy, did they not get it right. Just everything goes wrong in this movie.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. I'm curious. Had you seen this movie before you watched it for our purposes? No. Me either.
And
I'm going to go ahead and declare victory then, because you said that you loved Karate Kid 3. You think it's a good movie, and yet it did not propel you far enough to go see the next Karate Kid. So I'm going to say that that movie's a piece of shit because it couldn't make you go see the next Karate Kid. And I will declare victory.
But I'm also a horrible misogynist, as we know. I'm not seeing a movie starring a woman. You kidding me?
The next Karate Kid is a lady?
It doesn't get more midnight.
I was not offended by the lady. I was offended by we've fallen off the turnip truck. We clearly are grasping at straws now.
What's kind of interesting
in trying to keep this franchise going.
I was half looking forward to this because exactly the fact that I'm not a misogynist. Despite what I just said. In real life, yeah. Because
for the purposes of this podcast, go ahead.
For the purpose of this podcast, I'm a bad human being. I have to be, because the people who make these movies are bad human beings, and I have to understand the Manhunter style in order to do this podcast. Which is a sequel. See, I can't think outside the sequel box anymore.
I know.
But my point was that
starting to dream in sequels.
Everything on the outside of this movie makes it look like it's a really progressive piece of filmmaking. But everything inside is about keeping women down. And I think that was the real tragedy of this movie, that even if it was executed badly, I might still stick up for it politically. But I can't even do that because it's what it does to women in the frame of this movie is horrific.
Yeah.
It sets back the cause of women, if anything.
Agreed.
So
even if you're just looking from a perspective of costuming,
right?
You're talking. So Pat Morita is back.
Oh boy, is he back!
He is back 100%. Ralph Macchio, gone. Mentioned once, out of sight, out of mind beyond that. And in his place is, of course, Hilary Swank.
Mm-hmm.
Hilary Swank in this movie is constantly wearing jeans with, I think, essentially a sweatshirt, but the sweatshirt is like bunched up so that you can see her tiny waist, but tight enough so that you can see her boobs. In a way where I constantly was just thinking, what old creep demanded that fucking costume?
Yeah. I guess the same old creep that put her in a ball gown and made her dance.
Yes, right.
Didn't see that coming.
I'll tell you one thing. I did not see Karate Waltz coming either.
Just to
being taught the waltz through karate.
To make another kind of overall point about gender, I don't think that Julie Hilary Swank should have been Daniel in a dress by any means, but there should be differences in the way that she's portrayed because she is a woman. But
sure,
that shouldn't revolve around the most retrograde stereotypes of what we think of femininity. That's my big objection. And this movie is trying to do a kind of Pygmalion My Fair Lady transformation of this character. So that's their kind of angle on how we do on how we switch it from male
A
to
woman
female
in the right,
is
yeah.
that we have this kind of Cinderella story, I think is probably a better way to put it, in the middle of it.
Right, exactly right. They turn it into a Cinderella story.
Which is just insulting because...
And then again, speaking to peripheral movie stuff, also not helped by her love interest clearly looking like a almost 30-year-old man. Like, there's no way that guy's in high school. No way. And Hilary Swank is, probably 17 or 18 when she was filming this movie, maybe 19 or 20 when it came out. And that guy is, it's like they did the exact same thing that Ralph Macchio would not allow them to do in Karate Kid Part 3 when he was 28 or something like that. And an actual 16-year-old girl is playing the high school student. And because of the time fuck up, he's an old man, not an old man, but you know what I mean? In comparison, he's not a high school student, but he's playing a high school student or just out of high school still. And the actor himself had to say, no, let's not do that. And then I just like in the next Karate Kid, they doubled down on that idea. It's like, yeah, this guy's clearly like a 50-year-old man playing a high school student, but let's make him the love interest.
Well, maybe Ralph Macchio was the last obstacle to, the film moving into full pedophilia.
I know, right?
I mean, maybe that was the last time they listened to reason on anything.
Well, there's no evidence to suggest they started listening to reason until recently when people started getting arrested.
Oh, I see what you mean. I just meant generally in terms of, it's interesting that Ralph Macchio is behind the scenes, sort of basically
shaming them into doing the right thing.
Shaming them to doing the right things, and there clearly isn't that kind of on-set figure in this movie.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Because I also had a kind of I had a lot of epiphanies in this movie. It's probably because so much of it is in a monastery. I had a lot of
right.
a lot of
you self-reflected.
Yeah, that's right. But I there's a lot of comedy in this movie, like a lot of comedy.
Right.
And as it went on, I thought, you know what? I like the way this comedy is being executed. It's the choice to make everything comedy that is the problem. I have no problem watching, Happy Days Pat Morita doing some, fun kitchen-based karate jokes. Like,
sure.
Like, great, But, he's an accomplished comic actor.
Right.
He's good at this stuff. There's no, two ways about that. Every single choice to go in that direction is a mistake.
Right. One of my notes is the problem is that this movie is shot like a sitcom.
Yes.
That's the problem. Because, go back to the original movie. That movie's funny.
Yeah.
That movie's comedic throughout, but there's actual drama as well.
Yeah.
And that's what works about the movie. This movie dramatically is a mess.
Absolutely. It goes nowhere. And then it goes very fast down all the wrong roads.
The only place it goes to is Boston.
Yeah, which, and again, I definitely seeing a trend here, a fine idea done badly, because it's like, oh, let's go to the East Coast. Why not? Daniel's from the East Coast. This is like an LA-centric movie. Do an LA-centric series. Let's do something. Let's mix it up geographically. No problem with that.
Well, let's fill in some exposition for the listeners. So if you haven't seen the movie, what happens is it's a war buddy, right?
Well, I have a few questions about the setup for this movie. I think it's a great way to get Miyagi to Boston is through
perfectly serviceable
through this dedication ceremony for his war unit.
Right.
But in that he has a reunion with the widow of someone he served with.
Correct.
And very quickly he manages to con her out of her home. Am I reading this wrong?
No, exactly. That's my note. They're doing a house swap. And what this means
I don't get the sense he's taking no for an answer on this. I know I have a very low opinion of Miyagi.
I was going to say, you're just collecting more evidence for your theory that Miyagi is a terrible person. But to me, the worst person is the grandmother, the widow.
Yeah.
Because she is the grandmother of Hilary Swank's.
She was even the grandmother
character, Julie.
She's not a mother, is she?
So
that doesn't make sense.
No, she's the grandmother. Hilary Swank's parents have died. Right. So, Julie's going through some shit. But what Grandma decides to do is abandon her and house swap and go to Miyagi's house in L.A., which is the most convoluted way for them to get Miyagi to stay in Boston. I mean, it's just where you think, all these people are terrible. I hate them.
Yeah.
They're awful. Don't abandon your granddaughter in her moment of need. You're going to severely fuck her up for doing that.
And Julie is introduced in such a confusing way where she is calling herself by a name other than the name that she has. Which, when you're doing exposition... I mean, I'm not a professional screenwriter. But I don't think it's a good move to introduce your character that no one's ever seen or heard of before with the wrong name.
Correct.
The only that sounds like something that would be in Arthur Spooner's screenplays in The King of Queens. Where every character's called Arthur.
I did have a note here where I was like, I just have a note here that I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. So it's very. There's so much that's. I mean, there's so much that's strange about those scenes. The war widow, I can't remember her name, but she offers Miyagi some potatoes, and he says, "Miyagi is a rice man. Remember?"
Rice man. That I was just going to mention that.
I mean, so this is interesting for so many reasons. The fact that saying "I'm a rice man" is the most mid-90s way of saying that you could possibly... If you told a robot, like a robot in an AI in a computer, give me mid-90s way of saying "I only eat rice," that was what would come out.
Well, and I kept thinking, like, load that line into a computer, and the computer would break trying to figure out, is this racist? Is this...
They're obviously trying to make a racial point. But, it's sort of like a human being of any ethnicity can have more than one carb in their diet. Right. The other thing that really, really struck me, and this is like, even in this movie's best moments, they just drop the ball. Because the opening dedication ceremony is a really potentially lovely moment. Because, we're taking aside time, we're using the Miyagi backstory to basically honor Japanese-American history.
Right.
In a way that, certainly in 1994, America wasn't necessarily prepared to talk about internment camps and the like, And that's of course, right. But in the way that they do that is they have the widow getting up to give a speech, and the first thing she says is, although many families were in internment camps, and I was like, I don't know much about public speaking, but aren't you supposed to start with a joke? Don't go up front with the internment camps. So that makes no dramatic sense that she would begin a speech that way. But, kudos to the movie for even going there. But they can't seem to...
But they dropped the ball.
They can't seem to handle anything.
That was my note. Because I wrote the same thing. I said, leading with internment camp.
Oh, you did? You had exactly the same notes.
Yeah. But then after that, I wrote, this movie's dropping the fucking ball.
It really is.
All right. Well, okay. We're just getting started, everybody. We are talking about 1994, The Next Karate Kid. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Tom, we're going to delve deep into the plot. I'll put in quotes of this movie.
Nobody can see you do those quotes.
I know. All right, we'll be right back after this. Stay
film.
tuned. Can I ask you a question? Do you like beer? I like beer. It's required by law that you like beer when you're living in San Diego, California, but even I can get confused and dizzied by the amount of choices that you can see at your local beer store. What's a person to do? I'll tell you what you do. You'll watch the Vegas Beer Guys, a live show on Instagram and Facebook, and they will set you right as to what beers you should have in your life or should not have in your life. The Vegas Beer Guys are brought to you by Dan Aker, the beer professional, and Stephen Weiss, self-proclaimed beer novice. They'll drink beers for you and drink beers with you. Go ahead and check out their live shows, and they'll tell you which beers you should be having in your fridge. Everybody wants the perfect combination of malt and hops in your life, and Dan Aker and Stephen Weiss are the perfect combination of fantastic and wonderful. Check them out on Facebook. Check them out on Instagram. Find them. You're going to watch their show and love their show. They give away free merch during their shows, so go ahead and check out the Vegas Beer Guys. What a great time. And we're back. Tom and I are here talking about, once again, The Next Karate Kid, starring Hilary Swank and Pat Morita. Some of the old band is back here, too. Not the old band in the sense from other Karate Kid movies, but, you know, just people you knew from the time. Well, Michael Ironside as the baddie in this movie.
I thought you were going to say the old band, like, literally. Like, that it's... that because you are right there, too. It's Bill Conti's, you know, fake Eastern score. Zamfir's panpipes. Zafmir's? How do you say his name? Zafmir?
I don't know.
Basically, like, he's like the panpipe Kenny G, as far as
Right, exactly.
As far as I can tell.
But we don't have Avildsen. We didn't mention... I mean, we mentioned that it's directed by Christopher Kane, but John G. Avildsen did not direct this movie because he was directing 8 Seconds. The Ride a Bull story with Luke Perry.
Oh, I thought you meant he was like...
But you do have Walton Goggins, and this has got to be one of the first roles for Walton Goggins, right?
That's one of my notes. I put, you know, apropos of nothing, I just wrote Walton fucking Goggins.
Yeah. So
and
Walton Goggins, my note is that we have a tight jeans commando group known as the Alpha Elite, ?
Here's the thing. My confusion about this movie continued because, and I think it was because I was kind of coming in off Karate Kid 3.
Terrible movie.
And I was looking for areas in this... Sorry?
Terrible movie. Go on.
Some would say it's a terrible movie. But, because I was coming in off that, and, you know, I was thinking... I was trying to be alert to where there were continuities because there were so few.
Right.
Because I didn't want to write this off as a...
I was doing the same thing.
Total
but it's
reboot.
26 minutes until we even hear Daniel's name mentioned.
Right. And I just assume because they're identical in every single way that this was Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
Because in
But
Karate
as part
Kid 3,
of a school, Tom, like... Well, I have like 4 notes that say, what school is this? Where you have a group of kids known as the Alpha Elite going around beating people up, telling lies about them to get them into trouble. They're the security guards for the school. Other students are the security guards.
Yeah.
Led by Michael Ironside, a clear monster.
Yes. So, but my thinking was that Terry Fisher in Karate Kid 3 has a line about how they're franchising Cobra Kai nationally. Mm-hmm. And in my head, in my adult sequel
sequel
continuity
brain. You saw, yeah, they all were.
I was like, okay, so this is the result of that. You know, Cobra Kai is now gone national.
Come on,
So
Tom. They were throwing their T-shirts back at them and getting rid of their flyers. That didn't happen. Nobody wants that Cobra Kai.
no, but you know that like I would have preferred. I think that would have been a better way to go.
Right.
Rather
I see what you're
than
saying.
an exact clone of the same organization, which is what we have with the Alpha Elite. But again, like something I kind of liked the fact. I thought it looked very progressive. Because think about it, in the mid-90s, you know, urban violence in schools is starting to become like a conservative
Hot button issue.
yeah, conservative talking point. And this movie's taking the opposite position, but saying that basically it's the you know, the white supremacist meathead rapists who are fucking up schools, and the kids, you know, the kids of all colors are great.
Right.
You know, they're fine. It's like they're being treated as criminals. Because there is this white supremacist fantasy that they're creating violence in schools, but the only violence that's being created is by the people who are supposedly protecting them. So I like that overall idea. It also speaks to our time, perhaps even better than it does in the mid-90s. But
yes, and that was the thing that was alarming to me, actually.
But I mean, it's just strange how it all plays out.
I mean, when you meet, not the first time you meet these people, but when you see them all together for the first time in a group, they're playing a game called Bull in the Ring.
Mm-hmm.
Where one person... I used to play a game called Bull in the Ring for Pop Warner football, where one person would be in the middle with pads on and a helmet. And another person would just race in, and you're just trying to not let them get past you. And you'd have to just kind of block them. And then you'd hear, hut, and somebody else would come in. And you have to do it like 10 times in a row, and then somebody else would come in. In this one, it's like they're attacking you with knives and shit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, it seems very unsafe for a Boston public school. Or I guess maybe it's a private school, but still.
Is this the scene where Pat Morita as Miyagi comes over?
Yes, he just walks up and wants to find Julie, and then he gets threatened.
Like he's like in that scene, he's like a karate Columbo.
Yeah, yeah,
he's like playing this harmless old man, and then at the very end, he turns and reveals that he is this. I really thought the way the story was going to go was that, Michael Ironside was going to call up Terry Fisher and say, you ever heard of this guy Miyagi? And he's going to be like, oh, you better watch yourself. Maybe that's the movie I wanted to see.
I'm telling you right now, you were early on giving this movie way too much credit.
I was, and I kept, according to my notes, I kept believing it was Cobra Kai until about 3/4 of the way into the movie, because I've got a note that just says, "Are we going to talk about Cobra Kai at any point?" Their badges visually are so similar.
Oh my gosh, that is fantastic. Cobra Kai never entered my mind. I knew Cobra Kai was going to not be a feature in this movie.
Great.
And that they were just replaced with the Alpha Elite. Once again, I'd like to say their name is the Alpha Elite.
Which is like an unlicensed Cobra Kai knockoff.
Oh, man. And so, I mean, you alluded to it earlier, but essentially the bulk of this movie takes place because Julie has been suspended for 2 weeks.
Yes.
And that's how we get to the monastery, to the monks.
She's really not ready for that monastery.
No.
Although in her defense, I hashtag blame Miyagi. Miyagi really should have given us some primer on how to act in a monastery.
Yes, exactly.
I think they're
Thank
really
you.
both at fault. She shouldn't be going around first thing in the morning screaming her head off in the middle of a
Yes,
monastery.
that's my first note. Just yelling as she runs past monks and laughing.
The other thing that's kind of again, I sort of I don't object in principle, but it's so badly executed that I ended up hating it. Was the idea that she's not because Daniel was a complete novice.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Whereas
But
she has
she
already
is-
been taught karate by her grandfather, who Miyagi taught karate to. So, by proxy, she's already been taught by Miyagi. Which
Well, I
she
think
reveals...
it's funny, too, because you find out, say, in Karate Kid Part 2, that essentially that this is really only supposed to be passed down from father to son, it seems like.
Right.
But in Karate Kid 2, they made a special exception for Sato because
Yeah.
I can't remember why.
I don't think a reason is given, Michael. Stop trying to imply that they thought about this question.
So it's like Sato's taught, then he teaches Daniel, now he's teaching Julie. For a guy who's only supposed to pass this on to his own offspring, he's just throwing karate fucking everywhere, this guy.
Yeah. And this is kind of revealed through a sort of one of the movie's many pastiches, parodies of martial arts movies, I guess, where she jumps on
the hood of a car,
jumps onto a moving car, and it's kind of revealed that she already has karate superpowers. So I like that idea that she's not a complete novice, but then she's also not a karate kid.
But she looks like a novice for the rest of the movie, even after training.
Right.
But also, so this...
I also... The other thing I also really...
She's upset and she runs out into the street and there's a car coming straight at her. And then you have like a zoom close-up of her crouching down. And I would swear that I remember like a $6 million man sound.
It is.
As she leaps on top of the hood of the car.
Yeah.
And then he,
which is also like a kind of martial arts movie Sting kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is what I think they're going for, but it could equally just be the $6 million man that they're trying to do.
Oh, man.
And I also like the fact that she's, refuses to be part of his exploitation scheme. When she says, I'm not waxing anyone's car.
Yes. Right.
And she puts up a fight when he tries to, in a development of his exploitation business model, he starts to hire her services out to other people.
Yeah. You're gonna
to local families as a babysitter. And she puts up a little bit of a fight to this, and I thought that was kind of that was interesting.
Well,
development.
So let me ask you this: is this movie even? Is it because the one thing I thought the movie got right was, at least initially, all of her pain and anguish with having her parents suddenly be gone out of her life. And so you have this sort of movie trope where the stranger has to win over the girl. Like these two people that don't know each other, and Miyagi has to kind of win her over and bring her over to her side. Correct. Or to his side. Was that successful for you? Because I really couldn't decide. I kept going, this is starting to work. Oh, nope, that's not working at all. I just kind of went back and forth where at the end I thought, nope, doesn't work. Fuck you.
As exploitation aside,
right?
Their relationship is so hazy in so many different ways. He's at the beginning of the movie, she's sort of like, positioned as the rich heiress, and he's the family valet and chauffeur. Mm-hmm. He's driving her around. He's driving her
to school.
I mean, driving Miss Daisy is only a few years ago, a big, Oscar fodder.
Right.
And then later on in the movie, he's like Richard Gere in Pretty Woman to her.
Right.
when they're transforming her into a debutante.
Into a Karate Kid debutante.
Yeah. So their relationship is always unclear. I don't understand why he disapproves so much of her love interest,
Right.
Eric. You know, he's like seen rolling his eyes when they're together. I'm like, you basically pimped out Daniel to various women. Why? I mean, are you just a horrible misogynist like I pretended to be?
I don't think. Yeah, I think you're going a little too far in your Miyagi hatred. I don't know that he's pimping him out. Maybe you could make the argument for number 2, but everything else Daniel did on his own.
Uh,
And I don't think he
well,
even pimps him out in
I know
number 2.
Daniel thinks he's doing this all his own, but behind the scenes, Miyagi is pulling the strings.
Bullet strings!
It's been established.
Oh my god.
So it's a very odd, and I think just like I said, I like that she's putting up this fight to him trying to exploit her for unpaid labor. But I don't like that leads us to these.
I don't know that that's as much of the movie as you're saying it is, though. It's more like just to build up against the narrative you're creating yourself for
she ends
the terrible
up
monster you think Miyagi is.
She ends up babysitting just these awful
kids, right?
Of kids running around, and it's just this like early 90s obsession of trying to make everything kid friendly.
Mm-hmm.
It's monstrous here. It takes over the movie like a virus. And we haven't even got to the monks bowling.
I know.
And dancing to the Cranberries.
Yes.
One of those two things is too much. Right?
Yes. What?
And I'm thinking about, this movie is coming off the back of successful kind of family movies like Uncle Buck and Home Alone.
Uh-huh.
I see a little bit of Driving Miss Daisy in there, a little bit of Pretty Woman. I think it is like they are just scrambling to come up with any kind of. I think that basically, they want to have a woman as a girl, I suppose, as the Karate Kid. But that in this time and place just throws so many, spanners in the works for male screenwriters and producers,
right?
That they're just throwing anything they think might be successful at this movie. Like,
right,
do a scene from Pretty Woman, make it a little bit like Driving Miss Daisy. Let's have that scene that's a bit like the one in Home Alone.
Well, I think a lot of this movie feels like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah,
and
the one of the things that has been happily consistent up to this point in the series, and this is a series which has virtually no consistency of any kind, is that Miyagi is cool and tough.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie wants to unravel that too. Which is, I mean, he has...
Well, is that a product of just Pat Morita getting older?
I mean, I think it's about dropping the ball. Like, he has an incredibly, he has a really, really cool, potentially cool moment in this where he catches an arrow out of midair.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great moment, and then it's followed up with the line, "Thanks for the arrow." And it's like, oh, you ruined it. That was your only cool moment in the film? You ruined it by talking.
It should be noted that was his birthday gift.
So I just, I think he's there. He's cracking wise all the time. He's talking way too much.
Yes, I'll agree with that. And part of that is his attempt at humor to try and get her over to his side, to get her to trust him a little bit. After being abandoned by her grandmother.
I mean, I clearly, like, when he's driving her in the car and talking about hamburger tempura with French fry.
Right. Yeah, but that's exactly. It's like
he's trying to break her down her braddishness and her like sullen teenager vibe, definitely.
Right.
But the whole movie is just, then it gets to a point, it's like, even when she's on his side, he's still doing a lot of jokey things. The movie is comicalizing everything he does, almost, to the point where it's just kind of, it's just ridiculous, and it leaves you with a bad taste in your mouth with regards to how you see Miyagi. It's kind of like tragic that this is the Miyagi we're left with. But also in the course of the movie, he has to step up and be that cool badass at certain moments in the film. And that's hard to take seriously when, he's driving around a bunch of monks in a van.
Well, I also think it's not helped by medium range shots that show how slowly and without force he is moving. Which is based solely on just Pat Morita's, he's getting up there in years and he can't do what he used to do. And this movie just does not help him in any way, shape, or form when those moments have to come up.
And, you're right. In another way that you could defend this is sort of saying that when characters that are supposed to be tough and, have this hard exterior, have been in enough installments of a series, they start to become these avuncular figures eventually, just because of the way that because of how we feel towards them, that their image is kind of softened. That sort of happens a little bit naturally, but it's so forced here to do that. And I don't think that's what people like about Miyagi too. It's like the comedy, it's the comedy was always just that little bit extra. You have essentially a very serious performance with this kind of cherry on top, which is that Pat Morita's a great comedian and he can nail a comic moment.
Yeah, but it's
all
always,
this movie gives him is comic moments.
You look back to the original movie, The Karate Kid, and you see how grounded everything in the movie is.
Yeah.
Including and especially his character. And if you watch just that movie and this movie, I mean, it's a Grand Canyon jump between what his character is in the first movie and what his character is in this movie.
And I guess, having defended Karate Kid Part 3, I shouldn't mind that we're not grounded, but I think my point would be that you've got to exchange it for something that works. And for me, the melodrama of the third movie works because it's so overt.
Doesn't work for me, but
I know it doesn't.
I understand
it doesn't
what
work
you're
for
saying.
You. But I miss the groundedness of the first Karate Kid, and I miss I feel like if you go full high school movie, and it's not really that either.
And right, yeah.
It's just that mid-90s fucking movie.
It's a sitcom movie, and that's this movie's problem. We're going to take a break, everybody, and when we come back, we're going to talk about monk training and a final battle.
There's bungee jumping in this movie. That is how mid-90s it is.
So stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back.
If you're anything like me, you spend the majority of the day wondering whether you want coffee, beer, or wine. Whichever way you fall, Brew Bar has you covered. Located in the heart of 3rd Avenue Village in glorious downtown Chula Vista, California, which is also my neck of the woods, Brew Bar is a coffee shop, bar, and eatery rolled into one delightful package. Tim and Alex run the place, and let me tell you, listeners, these guys know their coffee. And after you've been in their company, so will you. They turned me on to pour over, and it's literally all I drink now. If for some crazy reason you don't want to try the best coffee in the world, they've got espresso drinks, all kinds of teas, and even coffee cocktails. You heard me? Coffee tails. And we're just getting started. Bottle service on craft beer and wine, alcoholic and caffeinated potions, an all-day food menu with plenty of vegan options. all served up in an atmosphere hip enough to know you're getting the best quality, but not too hip that you feel the need to drive to 7-Eleven and get a bucket of brown swill. Brew Bar. It's the best place to be for beer, wine, coffee, and tea. And if you go, you might even see me.
And we're back. Tom and I are still on to the Karate Kid Part 4, the 1994 Christopher Kane film. We're coming to the end of it, Tom. I mean...
And it hasn't even started.
I know.
We are,
this movie
we
is
are not,
extra.
And I just wanted to reassure listeners that we are not missing anything out here.
No.
This movie does not begin, it does not end.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said earlier, the crux of this movie is, it's, you know, essentially this movie, half of this movie takes place at the monastery.
It feels like it.
Yeah, and the only reason that's possible is because Julie gets suspended for taking care of a hawk.
Right. And I again, there was a sort of a, almost what I saw as a kind of visual symbol of like getting rid of all the baggage of the franchise, where it was like, you do the fuck what you want to a bonsai tree, but don't hurt those birds.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, like, think about how precious bonsai trees were in certainly Karate Kid Part 3. You know, Daniel nearly dies saving a bonsai tree. And here they're just like, fuck that bonsai! It's birds that matter now for some reason.
Yeah. I also thought it was interesting that Mr. Miyagi could do the clap Miyagi trick on birds as well. It doesn't work just on Daniel-san. He can fix a wing with the clap rub.
Yeah. And, you know, we have a scene when they're on the road to the monastery, Miyagi's able to tame a vicious dog.
Yes.
As well. Now, this brings me to something that I wanted to talk about, which was something that comes up again and again in our discussions. We've kind of bemoaned the amount of kind of racism in some of the movies.
Prevalent throughout all movies.
Throughout all movies until 2019
Forever.
and a half.
Yes.
But in the movies we've watched, we've said, oh, this shouldn't come down to race, or race is very badly handled. And here, it seems to be deliberately, any discussion of racial conflict seems to be almost censored from this movie, to me.
Yes, right.
And in a way, that's what
we've used for comic effect,
right? But it's
at times
kind of
in weird ways.
It's kind of what we've been wishing for, but be careful what you wish for, because it just comes across as disingenuous.
Right. Exactly.
And I was trying
to think about...
the bowling
scene is the best example of that.
Well, I think
basic.
Well, every time there's a kind of conflict, there's a race is the sort of subtext, I think. You know, it's like these hicks setting on Miyagi, the alpha elite setting on Miyagi, the Buddhist monks and the guys and the kind of white working class bowlers.
But then the bowlers, it's like this thing where the monks come in, and all these sort of working class Boston people. Yeah. Also, I think it's funny there's not a single Boston accent in this whole movie, but
it's probably filmed in Hawaii again.
Yeah, exactly. They're all giving kind of side eye to these monks and like, what are you doing in our space and with our
exactly.
And then 3 minutes later, they're bowing and it's a love fest.
Yeah, and I think it is.
They've learned through their Zen bowling of just walking up to the line and slowly pushing the ball down the lane, and that's the way to go for bowling for them for now on.
They want to give off this utopian idea of this is a post-racial America, but
yes,
but
right.
But the fault lines are still there, It's just we're not talking, it's just we're not talking about that. Clearly, race is something that matters here. But it's interesting because something we didn't talk about in the previous Karate Kid films is that, Miyagi is racially abused by Kreese throughout those movies.
The racial epithets in the movies are
Yeah, I mean, the Japanese N-word is used.
Yeah, right.
The S word, which I won't even
No.
recount here. And so it's sort of like where's the nice compromise between having to listen to this word coming out again and again, and you can't say it's not. It clearly makes total dramatic sense that Kreese would feel this way, not just because of his character, but also his background in Vietnam, etc.
Right.
But I kind of want something between these.
Doesn't make it better.
Yeah, it doesn't better. But I also just don't believe that race isn't a factor in the dramatic conflicts of this movie.
No, yeah, absolutely.
And it's interesting, and a bit of trivia, which doesn't get us anywhere, but is just kind of interesting. It's when we have to put ourselves back in the mindset of people at the time making the movie. And Pat Morita in the 60s, his self-given stage name was the Hip Nip.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So you have to also factor that in. It's like, how does Pat Morita feel about all this? Like, he wants to, to kind of, he wanted to reclaim racist language against himself. Is that how he saw it?
Well, and I think there's I imagine there was a time in any minority's life or Pat Morita's life where they felt like they had to do that, like to show you hear stories about Sammy Davis Jr.
Yeah.
Who had to endure a lot of that even in the Rat Pack and just sort of pretend like it didn't bother him.
Yeah.
But how could it not?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But
so it's it's just, I just think both sides of this are kind of insulting if you're a minority.
Yes, right. Yeah.
Because one is sort of trying to efface the problem completely. The other one is just, it means that a lot of Southeast Asian people have to sit through movies where, they're being racially abused throughout.
Mm-hmm.
So neither is a good situation to be in, but I found it very hollow and inauthentic.
Well, and it's the difference between, for instance, we gave a lot of time in the what was it? Number 4.
You may have to be more specific.
I'm like blanking on the series.
Final Destination? Yeah.
Thank you. The Final Destination series. We gave a lot of play to that racist character who's saying and doing and terrible things, and it's like vitriol and it's gross and it's ugly, but that's extra offensive because narratively not necessary.
Right.
And then you have a movie like Karate Kid and Karate Kid Part 3 where Kreese is saying things that are ugly, but like to your point, you could see why the character might say those things. But also, he's not the only character that says those things.
No, that's true.
So does, you know what I mean? So there's another character, the Silva character in Karate Kid Part 3, who does not need to be, it's just like, it's all ugly.
Mm-hmm.
And then in this movie, you go the opposite direction where you can sort of visually see that narrative or those words in the mind of Michael Ironside, but he doesn't say them.
Completely. It's just ridiculous to think that and also that Alpha Elite aren't associated with white supremacy. Because they're like poster boys for the sort of the meathead rapist attack on American diversity.
Yes.
And it's just it's very strange. But I think
The other stuff makes your skin crawl, but in this movie, you're always thinking like, this is gross, but they're not even. There's a special amount of gross because they won't lean into how terrible these people are.
Yeah.
And then there's also, part of it is like, again, it's sort of sitcom-y after school special because most of the bullies learn their lesson at the end of this movie.
Yeah. And
White supremacists learn their lesson at the end of this movie.
Well,
which also rings not true at all,
Something else that, well, I don't know if it rings true or not, but it's, to me, was very offensive, was how much screen time we spend on Eric and how much of Eric's story is told in this movie where it's like, what's the point of making a gender switch if you're going to allot so much screen time to, the male hero character and his journey?
Right.
And it almost felt like, this, I don't know how whether they upped his screen time because they were genuinely worried about Hilary Swank carrying the movie or just a woman carrying the movie. I don't know, but I feel like he's almost got as much screen time as she has, and his story is given just as much weight.
Yeah.
I wonder whether there was an earlier draft in which he was the Karate Kid. I don't know. It certainly feels that way.
Well, and also, there's just sort of lots of weight given to the troubled, angry girl who puts on a dress and is seen as beautiful.
Right.
And
I mean, I
like she it's like, there's too much weight given to a young woman finding herself through the eyes of how a man sees her.
And the way that 100%, and the way that this, it's always kind of telling. I guess the big life lesson comes in the final fight sequence in these movies.
That fight sequence is just something else. By the way,
and we have all these false starts. It starts off with Eric fighting the Alpha Elite.
Yeah.
Right? Which is...
Also, I'll note, like, one of my notes is, man, this high school student seems to have a lot of control over the docks. They've got cans on fire all over the place. They have light. They've got, there's nobody patrolling. It's like they have full control.
Yeah, it's just like, just imagine like Whitey Bulger sort of saying, hey, it's the Boston Harbor.
These are
you
my
can do
docks.
What you want.
High school kids.
Do what you want. This is basically international waters.
But then, of course, you have this whole thing of, Miyagi, who's supposed to be the pacifist, who is, Julie-san, it's time for us to end it.
Earlier on
Fuck
in the movie,
shit.
Miyagi tries to find ways not to fight after he's just beaten the shit out of 3 people.
Right. Yeah. I know.
But beyond that whole sequence, it starts with Eric. It moves on to Julie, and because she's too good...
Well, it kind of moves on to Miyagi first. It's like...
And then doesn't it end with Miyagi?
He chooses not to fight. So
yeah.
It's Michael Ironside confronts Miyagi. Miyagi tries to walk away. And then it's Julie.
Right. And then Miyagi takes over to beat up Michael Ironside. So she's sandwiched between these 2 men.
Exactly.
And the focus, and basically she's, by virtue of the fact that she's technically superior to the people she's fighting, she doesn't get to fight. She beats them really easily. Because she's got all the, the grasshopper, and she's got everything she needs, and, these guys are useless. So
yeah, she's mastered the art of jumping from rock to rock in a rock garden.
So it just kind of extraordinary to me that she's constantly being buffered by the other male characters in the movie when this is supposed to be her story. Completely.
Yeah.
What do you think of
what
do you think of Hilary Swank in this movie?
Okay, I'm glad you asked, because I think it's one of my most interesting notes is, look, for those that are actors, we've all had a beginning. There's a beginning to the process.
For every saga, there is a beginning. And it's usually Jake
And the
Lloyd.
most interesting thing to me about her, she's completely serviceable in the movie. But where she's at her best is when she has to feel genuine emotion to the point where she's crying. And then in the moments where she's just talking to Miyagi, so-and-so, and blah, 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 what happened to you, how'd your day go? That's where it feels
and
the
there are
least
those scenes
real.
in this movie, everyone.
Oh, there's plenty of those scenes in this movie. And I found that fascinating about her performance, that she could tap into honest emotion when the stakes were high, but felt less real in the day-to-day moments. How about you?
I thought she was awful. I mean, I know she's good, but I didn't see anything good in the, but I couldn't separate that from how just hideous a character Julie is. I mean, and this is on the writers and the directors really more than her.
I was gonna say that's not her fault.
That's not her fault, but and she's the kind of actor that doesn't sort of gloss over character flaws, and character flaws is all she's got to work with here. But every time she's on screen, I mean, again, it's like this movie. If you were already like on the fence as a misogynist and was like, I think I hate women, but I'm not sure, this movie could put you over, because she's everything that misogynists hate about women in movies. Is shrill, she's awful, she gives you nothing to care about or like, and I guess because she's playing that really well, because she's very competent.
That's the thing, too.
It makes it way worse. When she was going around shouting at monks in that monastery, I was like, I can't deal with this anymore. I really can't deal with this character anymore. Because she's like, I mean, it's again just standard bad writing. She's 0 to 60 every time she's on screen. Like, it just goes 0 to 60 every time she comes on screen. And
I think that's often true, but not always true. Far be it from me to suggest to you to rewatch this movie. But there are moments where, and it's always when tears are streaming down her face, those are the moments when she's the most grounded. And those are the moments where I like her character the most. Or her acting the most, at least.
I mean, it's I know in abstract she is a good actor, but I would get none of that from this movie.
I did get a little of it. I saw nuggets.
Okay.
Yeah. But on the whole, this movie is a fucking train wreck. It's a disaster from start to finish. And it killed the series.
It did, and it's I don't know if we've talked much about music in these films, but I mean, one of the ways in which
everybody will have a chance to hear it at the beginning and end of our episodes.
That's true, sadly. But another way in I think which this movie is like, it's putting all its money on 1994. The whole pot is going into like,
I'd like to put $5,000 on 1994, please.
It's saying this movie's gonna look great forever if 1994 is the future of our culture.
If 1994 exists in perpetuity, we're good.
Because we've got it's the three big musical moments of this movie start with M people.
Oh yeah.
Go into the Cranberries. There is a scene with monks dancing to the Cranberries in this movie.
After she's finally learning to not be a dick to the monks, she tries to be respectful and turn it off, and they turn it back on to dance.
Yeah, I've never wanted someone to be Radio Raheem more than anyone in a film. Get that chokehold cop in there. And then Desiree to lead us out of the movie. I mean,
Yes.
the most short-sighted soundtrack I could possibly think of, and yet I remember being really shocked with that military music that starts the movie. It's like, oh, I've never seen anything like this before in this franchise.
Yeah.
That's really weird. And then we get a few of the panpipes like going through, and the fake Eastern stuff. But it's interesting, like you with Karate Kid 2 and 3, you expect, I guess this does it a little bit, you expect the 80s, the parts of this franchise in the 80s to be more dated.
Mm-hmm.
But, and certainly, you know, you have to see 2 and 3 in the context of the late 80s. But
Sure.
you cannot unsee 1994.
You can't. You're right. I was gonna say you cannot undo the 1994 from this movie.
You know, bungee jumping from the rafters.
Yeah, I know.
But it's just, you know, it's interesting to me because I kind of question myself on this as like, you know, am I just being a musical hypocrite? Because, you know, stuff that pop music that I really like in movies surely dates it. You put, you know, you have a movie in the 60s, you put in the Rolling Stones or the Beatles, that gives you a flavor of that age, but it also gives you music that you might want to hear after the year it was recorded. And I think that's got to be the distinction, you know? I mean, this is my issue with Bon Jovi and Young Guns 2. It's like going back to a Bon Jovi song you never wanted to hear again.
Well, I disagree with you there. I'm always ready for that fucking song.
So I just it's so there's a definite. I mean, by the time Scorsese uses, you know, "Gimme Shelter" 50,000 fucking times in his movies, he's pretty sure at that point this song is gonna last a long time. People are always gonna want to hear this song. Like when you're watching in 2020 or, you know, the next century, this song, you know, this song has already stood the test of time. But here they're basically saying, well, it's number 3 in the charts, so it's going on the soundtrack.
Let's do it. Yeah. Well, I got nothing else left for the next Karate Kid. I'm ready to throw that on the junk pile of film history and move on, my friend. We're going to be pitching a sequel next.
Sounds good.
All right. For Tom Stewart from Lonesome Whistle Productions, I am Mike Shantz from the How Dare You Awards. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for the Karate Kid series. Karate Kid Part 2, Karate Kid Part 3, and the next Karate Kid. Coming up next, we're going to pitch a sequel. See you soon. Say bye, Tom.
Woohoo!
Bye.